One of the things in gardening I collect most besides seeds and things related to growing seeds would probably have to be garden tools. I'm always on the lookout finding new and different types of gardening tools when I'm traveling. So this year, when we decided to go to Japan, finding some new unknown Japanese garden tools was something that I put on the list of things I wanted to do when I was there. I visited a few different kinds of stores that sell garden supplies in Japan. So I just will show you the stores I went to sequentially from the first one I went to the last one I went to. The first store I visited was a Daiso. Daiso is a very common 100 yen store in Japan where most things cost 100 yen. It is an equivalent to an American dollar store. This Daiso was on Shinsaibashi Street, which is in the center of Osaka on the main shopping street. So it was really interesting to see what they would stock in a city store. They had quite a big selection of different types of scissors, and these two items I had never seen before. One looked like a serrated weeding knife, and the other one I had no idea, but I checked the label and it said it was a stainless steel weeding fork. I found a hat net to cover your face, which seems like a pretty good idea, especially during the summer months when bugs fly up your nose. I was very tempted to get this, but I did not in the end. This shop sold a lot of different kinds of animal repellents. So like physical repellents, like these posts that will like move a line so the birds won't land on it. And these spiky things so cats won't go in your garden maybe. But it seems like this is a problem for a lot of city dwellers. One other thing I hadn't seen before was this tool. It seems to be a sort of hand hoe. I need to do a little bit more research to figure out what exactly it was, but that seems like a common tool used in Japan. The next store I visited was a home improvement store. This was also located in Osaka, outside of the main city center. The home improvement centers in Japan, most like the hardware stores back home, in the Netherlands and also Australia, they have like the indoor plant section and also the gardening section and the building section. So they have different sections for everything. Their glove section was very impressive. They had so many different types of gloves, not just for gardening, but also for building, welding, cleaning, for chemical protection, every sort of kind of glove that you could probably think of. I probably could have spent a long time here, but my boyfriend was not really interested, so I just had a quick squeeze of these addictive gloves. One thing I found really interesting in this store was that it had a quite big section catering to flower arranging. They had a lot of different kinds of flower scissors, as you can see here, and that was a flower knife, I suppose. And they also had quite a big range of flower frogs, which in Japanese I believe they are called kenzan. So you can stick flower stems on those spikes and they should hold in the vase. The prices for these are quite reasonable. You can get them in the Netherlands and they are slightly more expensive. And I thought I would see these again later on in my trip, but I never saw them again, so I missed out. Like the Daiso before, they also sold a few animal repellents, but this time chemical, not just physical. A lot of the packaging in Japan ends up being cute even though it's a quite serious subject matter. Their gardening tools were actually in a separate section, so that this was a few aisles away from the flowers stuff. I was really interested in picking up a Japanese secateur. So ARS is a brand that is also exported to Australia, I believe. So I was interested in that brand in particular, and yes, so it was just interesting to see the different kinds of styles they sold there. There were a few other tools that I had never seen before, including these serrated sickles. And I was also on the lookout for a hori knife, but they were not selling it in this store. This kind of rake I'd never seen before. It seems like a hand rake that maybe gathered stones or something. I wish I could read Japanese because I did not know what it said. Still in Osaka, this is DCM, which is another brand of home improvement store. We had passed it going into a supermarket, and I just wanted to have a quick look around to see what they offered. They had a quite large range of indoor plants and gardening pots, and I was finally recognizing some of the same tools from previous stores in this one as well. So nothing quite out of the ordinary. There's the standard pruners and secateurs there. They did have some mini tools for probably the indoor gardener, so that's a really small trowel. But they did have bigger ones as well that look like a pretty big hand hoe. And so they probably cater to people who have allotments near the city as well. After Osaka, we went to Toyama and ended up hiring a car for a few days. After we had done some sightseeing, I asked my boyfriend if we could also have a look at a home center outside of the center of town, where going to a home center requires a car. This was by far the biggest home center I had ever been to in Japan. They had a lot of things, a lot of seedlings, a lot of seeds. They had maybe 3 walls full of seeds that I forgot to film because I just didn't know what to film, and I felt a bit self-conscious because it's literally just a place where locals do their shopping. So I didn't want to make a fool out of myself taking too many videos like a weirdo. I spent a little bit of time outside looking at their seedlings. It was really interesting to see what type of plants they would sell in their outdoor garden center. I was very interested in the edibles. And then eventually I headed off into the indoor section with all their tools and all their gardening supplies. They had a little sieve section, which I thought was really interesting. So you could pick a sieve and then select different types of meshes for the inside of it. So a more finer one or a larger one like that. And they had different sizes for them too. So they started off small and you could get quite large sieves. The prices were not bad either. It was nice to see that they use natural binding materials. So there was lots of jute strings. And also the more hard metal variety type. I didn't actually see a lot of plastic bindings. And the rest of the aisle was just some standard supports that I also can find back home in the Netherlands. Other types of plant supports. And lots of watering can options and sprayers. It seems in Toyama that they have a mole problem, which I also have to deal with back home. But unlike my pest control, the packaging is not as cute, unfortunately. I can't read Japanese, but I assume this repels pests with spice. This was the first store I actually found hori-hori knives. So it seems that it's not something you would find in an urban home center. Their tools section was quite impressive, but I didn't really want to film too closely because the cash register was right by this section and I felt a bit strange filming everything individually. They had a lot to choose from. There was a lot of different things I hadn't seen before, like this flower stem cutter. After the tool section, I ended up walking over to the glove section, and they also sold some arm covers. This store actually had an agricultural area, so supplies for farmers, which I thought was really interesting. These were various produce sacks for different sizes, and these were hoops for hoop houses to cover crops. And they also sold compost bins here, including the Bokashi kind with the bran. They also sold actual produce bags that you would wrap your produce into resell to customers. So they were branded with the types of vegetables that you would put into the bag. They had a lot of seed starting supplies, and I believe these are pickling pots, which I had never seen before. I thought this home center was really interesting and I would have stayed for hours, but it had already been a long day. So I got a few things and then we drove back to our hotel. This was the last home center that I visited on my holiday in Japan. I think it's the largest home center in Tokyo, so if you're there, this would probably be the best place to get Japanese tools if you're not going to any of the outer home centers in Japan. Here I did end up filming their seed section. They had quite a big selection, which I was really happy to go through. I didn't bring any seeds back. You have to check with your country's quarantine and customs laws to see if you can bring seeds back, but I did not buy any seeds while I was in Japan. And most of the varieties I saw I could find back home anyway. They also sell hori hori knives here. This was one of the brands that I had seen in the Toyama home center as well. But unlike the Toyama home center, the tools were not next to the cash register, so I felt a little bit more free to play with the tools and see how they felt in my hand and things like that. Most of the tools that I had already seen already in the other home centers and the other stores that I had seen in the previous 3 weeks. But it was always nice to go through them again and see if I missed anything. I saw these a lot in Japan. I believe they're called nata. So it's basically a garden machete. It's used in pruning and cutting branches and stuff, but I don't really have any use to bring a machete back home. They had the same sort of hand tools that the Toyama Home Center had, and a few of them were the exact same brand as the ones I had seen before. So that was more serrated and unpolished, which I had seen before. And yeah, so there was different size blades. They're very big into their scythes and this type of shape as well in Japan, I noticed. This was a pretty good home center, but because I had been to the Toyama one, which was quite similar but a bit bigger, I didn't end up buying anything from this store because I had already gotten the tools I wanted previously. Compared to the little stores I went to in Osaka, this one was definitely the most stocked of garden tools, so I would recommend you go here if you want to pick up any Japanese garden tool souvenirs. I hope this was a bit helpful. I'm really obsessed with garden tools. As you can see, I dragged my boyfriend to many places that he did not want to see, but he was a good sport about it. I will do a separate video about what I bought in Japan because this one is already long enough. But thanks for watching. Bye!